My absolute favorite game mode on Pro Cycling Manager 25 is career mode. Basically becoming a manager of a real-life cycling team, growing them across many seasons, trying to win the biggest races in the world. Honestly, that is Pro Cycling Manager at its best. But the start of a career mode can be a little bit overwhelming, so in today's video, I'll show you how I start a career mode on PCM 25. Anyway, let's start off with team selection. In Pro Cycling, there are 3 divisions, starting off at the top with World Tour. These are basically the 18 best teams in the world. The next division are the Pro teams, the second division in the sport. These teams are not the best in the world, but their riders are still pro cyclists. The third and the lowest division of the sport is Continental. They're not exactly amateur teams, but it's definitely a mix between pro and amateur. Now, I feel like first-time players start off with a World Tour team, but every single World Tour team has 28 riders, so 28 times individual rider scheduling plus individual rider objectives, that is so much season preparation. But the main advantage is that you know the riders, their opponents, and the races they will ride. When you start a career mode with a Continental team, that's completely different. For example, this team, Konya Buyukshehir, 11 riders only, so a lot less workload when it comes to the rider planning. But let's be honest, most of you have never heard of these riders. What I'm trying to say is there are different challenges based on the division you start in. That's why I feel like the most beginner-friendly teams to start with in career mode are top-level Conti Pro teams like Lotto. A solid team that most cycling fans know with already some star riders, so that's a benefit, and you know the opponents and the races they will ride. Because their schedule is mainly gonna be the big races. So, for the sake of this video, I'll start with Lotto. The first thing I usually do is taking a look at my team in the squad page, because I want to get to know my riders. But by default, it is showing the rider attributes, the stats of the riders, in current form. The season has not begun yet, so they're all out of form. On the right top, I can click on this button right here, Display of Starting Attributes. There we go. Those are the riders' default actual stats. If we sort by evaluation, our 2 best riders are Lennart van Eetveld and Arnaud Delis. Those 2 riders are going to be our leader in most of the races they ride. But their rider attributes, their stats are going to define which races they are good at. For example, Van Eetveld has 77 mountain stat, 79 medium mountain, and 78 hill stat. So his focus will be the mountainous races and the hilly parcours. Meanwhile, Delis does not have a mountain stat, so climbs are not for him. His best stats are 77 sprint and 79 acceleration, so he's our main sprinter. But 75 hill stat and 75 cobble stat means he can get over a hill or a cobble segment. But of course, it's not realistic for Delis and Van Eetveld to be leader in every single race this year. So I also want to take a look if we have riders that could be leaders in smaller races. For example, if I sort by the mountain stat, we can see that Eduardo Sepulveda has 74 mountain. On one end, he's a domestique for Van Eetveld, trying to help Van Eetveld get results. But we can also send him to smaller races as leader for his own results. When it comes to sprinting, Elia Viviani and Lionel Tamigno also have 75 sprint stats, so they can be sprinters in smaller races. Anyway, I think you get my point. So, we got to know our riders, but before we get to the calendar, I need to talk about our goal with this team. As I said earlier, Lotto is a Continental Pro team, the middle division of the sport, the middle column on our screen. Because our team is already one of the better teams in that division, our next step is simple. We want to become a World Tour team. To be able to achieve that, we have to finish in the top 18 of the team ranking. And basically, we score points for that ranking by doing well in races. All of this is important for our next step, our calendar. When I set up my calendar for a pro team, my first rule is I don't want to be racing more than 2 races at the same time. Next to that, because Lotto is a top-level pro team, I will focus on World Tour races and .pro races. Quite handy, at the top we can actually filter on World Tour races. If we had selected a World Tour team, all these World Tour races would be on our calendar and most of them would be mandatory. A pro team like Lotto is in a different situation. They need to request a wildcard to those races to be accepted. And well, if your team is not that good or does not have the right nationality, it's a political game as well, then you might be rejected. But playing with Lotto does give one major advantage. In the previous year, 2024, they scored so many UCI points that they have automatic access if they want to all these World Tour races, so a benefit over most of the other pro teams. So basically, if we want to compete in these World Tour races, we will be accepted. As we can see on the right, there's only 4 World Tour races on our schedule at the moment, which that's not much for the first quarter. Especially because World Tour races give the most UCI points and we need those. So my first move will be adding more World Tour races. For example, Omloop Nieuwsblad, also Edri Harelbeke and Gent-Wevelgem, the Belgian classics. But I also want to start my season earlier in Australia with the Sanderstead and Under and Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. But I think the UAE Tour is a race I don't want to add to my calendar. The best sprinters in the world will be at this race and Arnaud Delis is not a top sprinter. Then again, we are missing out on a few mountaintop finishes at this race with Van Eetveld, a previous winner of the race, but there's other races we can send them to. In early March, Paris-Nice is on our schedule instead of Tirreno Adriatico. And I think think I'll keep it that way because Arnaud Delis is better at a sprint with a massive echelon segment than a pure sprint, especially when Paris-Nice often has less top sprinters than Tirreno. Also, the climbing stages are not incredibly hard, so it's doable for Van Eetveld. Our first monument will be Milano-San Remo. That's a race that Delis can win, so it's gonna stay on the schedule. But Volta a Catalunya is a difficult one, because well, date-wise, it actually clashes with the Belgian Classics. So despite having some versatile sprint stages in Catalunya, Delis won't be riding this. But I feel like the medium mountain terrain is doable for Van Eetveld, so I'll send him here. Now let's click on clear filters and take a look at the non-World Tour races. On the left side, we can see that we start the season with the Australian Championships ITT and the road race as well on Sunday. These races are mandatory because we have an Australian rider, so we can't not ride this. Looks like on the last day of the Tour Down Under, we've got a one-day race in Spain scheduled. This comes down to personal preference. I don't like riding a one-day race during the Tour Down Under, so I will remove this race. A week later, we ride the Challenge Mallorca races, 5 one-day races surprisingly in Mallorca, but at the same time Surf Coast Classic, and also Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. These type of situations is where I try to add a little bit of realism. For example, if I send a rider to the Tour Down Under, I won't send that same rider to Mallorca 3 days after and 4 days after back to Australia. That's not realistic. So my plan is to keep the same team that rides Tour Down Under to also ride race Torquay in Australia and the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race for realism purposes. But as you can see, on the 2nd of February, we've got 3 races on the same day. I do not like that as a pro team. So GP Marseillaise, I'm sorry buddy, but I'm not riding you. There we go. And actually, another case of realism, on the right side we can see that we are riding the one-day Muscat Classic in Oman, but we are not riding the Tour of Oman a day later, which is unrealistic. So I'm actually going to skip the Muscat Classic. Realistically, you either ride both or you ride none. A combination that I do very much like in February is riding Étoile de Bessèges and Tour de la Provence in the next week. One fun dilemma about playing with Lotto is, do you ride the Giro d'Italia or not? Because in real life, Lotto doesn't. Instead, they race all these French one-day races to try and obtain as many UCI points as possible. Now next up, I want to complain to the developers of PCM. For example, we have requested a wildcard to the Santos Tour Down Under, but the wildcard has not been accepted yet. So on this planner page where I'm supposed to set the schedule for the entire year for each individual rider, I can't actually schedule the Tour Down Under in yet. But on January 1st, we get this stupid email, basically forcing us to decide what level of fitness each rider should start the season at. I'm sorry, but it's super hard to decide which riders need to start at a very high fitness at the start of the season if I can't plan in my first races of the season yet. So yeah, feature request. I want to be able to see the races that I've requested a wildcard for on this page, on the planner page, so I can plan the schedule. And yes, there's a chance that those races are rejected, that I won't be able to ride them, but then just remove them from the page. That workflow is so much easier. Anyway, when it comes to the planning, scheduling the riders for the National Championships of Australia, that is quite easy. I sort by nationality, I found the Australian man, Jared Drisners, and I added to his schedule. There we go. That one is simple. I also added the New Zealand National Championships to both Logan Curry and Ruben Thompson. Anyway, when it comes to the rest of the rider planning, I try to focus on the first race of each rider first. First of all, I think I want to add Étoile de Bessèges to the schedule of Arnaud Delis, starting off with 2 versatile sprints and a flat sprint. And there's no top sprinters on the start line, so that's a bonus. So Étoile de Bessèges all the way to Delis. There we go. Étoile de Bessèges also has a hilly time trial as the final stage. So I think Alex Segaard, both a domestique with 69 sprint for the lead out of Delis, but also 73 prologue for that time trial is a perfect pick. In real life, Jasper de Buist is usually a lead out for the likes of Arnaud Delis, but stats-wise not that great. So I think I'll send Cedric Beulens as the lead out instead. When I look at the parcours of the first Challenge Mallorca race, Trofeo Calvia, it looks like a Jeno Bergmoes stage. 75 hill stat, but still 70 sprint. So I'll add that race to his calendar. Perfect. I will also add Étoile de Bessèges to the schedule of Baptiste Weisstroffer because, well, he's French, and that is the law. The second Mallorca challenge is a flat sprint, but I don't want to send Delis to this race. But we said it earlier, Elia Viviani is also an option for sprint stages. So I'll drag that race to the schedule of Elia Viviani. And actually, while I'm at it, I'll drop it on Jasper de Buist as well as a lead out. Trofeo Serra Tramontana is a difficult one. Medium mountains in the middle of the parcours, but a flat sprint finish. I am considering Lionel Tamigno, 73 hill stat, 75 sprint, but only 63 medium mountains, so I'm not sure he survives that. I think I'll add the race to his schedule, but I'll hedge my bets by also adding Jeno Bergmoes to that race. So if the race is too hard, it's for Bergmoes. If it's easier, it's for Tamigno. The next one, Trofeo Andrade, that is definitely not for Tamigno, so that's Bergmoes territory. But Trofeo Palma is once again a flat sprint for Viviani and for Jasper de Buist. Now next up is pure personal preference, but I think I'll start my season with Van Eetveld quite late, at the Vuelta a Andalusia, halfway February. The stats of Brent van Moer do shout Bessèges to me, so he can be joining that race. Actually, Arjen Levijns and his stats are basically very similar to Jeno Bergmoes, so I think I'll send him to fairly similar races, and actually, we can drag his entire schedule from Bergmoes to Levijns like this. Eduardo Sepulveda is more of a pure climber, so I'll make him domestique for Van Eetveld at Andalusia as his first race. Milan Menton is a bit of a wild card. He has 74 sprint and 73 hill stat, so I think I want to add him to Trofeo Calvia to see whether he can survive it. Okay, that's sorted. Next up, the domestiques of our team. Sebastian Grignard, basically a solid domestique throughout most of these Mallorca challenges. So there we go, he's gonna ride every single one of them.
1 hour later.
Anyway, we've not fully stacked every single one of these races, but at least we know which race is gonna be the start of the season for every single rider, which is important for this stupid email. The way this works is basically Van Eetveld doesn't need to be at 90% fitness at the start of the year because he's only starting racing mid-February at Andalusia. So on the right, his preseason fitness, I tend to put that on normal then. The complete opposite example is Jared Drisners, who rides the Australian National Championships in just 8 days. So he's got to start on very high preseason fitness. Anyway, I've done it off camera, this page is now correct. So I can go back to the email and click accept. After accepting that email, I don't directly go back to my planner page to continue planning. I actually go 1 day later in the career mode to January 2nd for this email. Reply by race organizers. Basically, most of the races that we asked to join have accepted us, but we have been rejected by the Clásica de Almería. Knowing which races have accepted us, we can go back to the rider planning and finish it off outside of the requested wildcards, of course.
1 hour later.
Okay, there we go. My rider planning for the entire year is now complete. Next up is rider objectives. So for every single rider, we need to select certain races throughout the year that they need to peak for. Usually, I start off on the overview page, I select literally everything, and I delete all objectives. There we go. This way we are starting off with a clean sheet, and I like it that way. And now it's time to go rider by rider selecting their objectives, but there's one problem here. Van Eetveld, for example, wants to peak for the Tour de France, but that wildcard for the Tour de France has not been accepted yet, so I can't select it here yet. What I can do is select this plus sign, then go to July, because that's where the Tour de France is, and add it manually. I've done the same with Paris-Nice, LBL, and La Vuelta. Basically, these are the 4 races where Van Eetveld needs to be at his best. Next up, Arnaud Delis, and his goals are quite simple. Omloop Nieuwsblad, so opening weekend, Tour de France, and La Vuelta. To be honest, opening weekend is pretty far away from the Tour de France, so we can add another goal in between. I think Gent-Wevelgem is the perfect choice for this man. Now let's talk about Jeno Bergmoes. Milano-Sanremo is his first objective, but the Amstel Gold Race is less than a month later. But as you can see, this red bar here, that is a rest week after Milano-Sanremo, but I don't want that. I'll click that away because I want him to keep on training from his Milano-Sanremo form to the Amstel Gold Race. That way he's more likely to be in good form for the Amstel Gold Race as well, but afterwards it's gonna cost him in tiredness.
1 hour later.
Anyway, I've done the rider planning for every single rider of my team off camera. Next up is my sponsor objectives. Sometimes I do this before I do my rider planning, sometimes after. I always like starting with a clean sheet, so let's remove all these objectives. On the left side, we can see the races that we can add, including the sponsor Lotto's interest in that race. So the higher the importance of that race for the sponsor, the more likely my sponsor will be happy if I get a result there. I am a little bit surprised that Kuurne is higher on the list than Omloop Nieuwsblad, because Omloop Nieuwsblad is a bigger race. On the right side of the screen, we can see fulfillment of conditions. So basically, we need 1 to 2 races per quarter, set as a sponsor objective. So I like doing this per quarter. So on the left top, I filter on quarter 1, and these are the races for the first quarter. The most important race for my sponsor in this period is Kuurne, so I will 100% add that one. We see that our current goal for this race is visibility 9 with a 3 difficulty. That means that the higher the difficulty on the ride, the more happy my sponsor will be if I succeed in all my objectives. But personally, I think it's a mistake in the game that visibility 9 has a difficulty of 3, but winning the race only has a difficulty of 2. That does not make any sense. So I'd be better off selecting visibility 9 fine, but I think it's more realistic to go for the victory. And I think with Arno Deli, it's possible. I also really want to win Milano Sanremo, so I will add Milano Sanremo as a sponsor objective. That being said, the only option I have is gain a wildcard for the race, but I know I'll be accepted. So a sponsor objective with gain an invitation to the race is a bit of a cheat code for free sponsor happiness. In the second quarter, I will add the Tour of Flanders because we are a Belgian Classics team. And of course, for the third quarter, the Tour de France. I honestly can't overstate how much I dislike the gain a wildcard for the race sponsor objective. Anyway, in the last part of the season, La Vuelta Ciclista a España. On the right, we can see that our current sponsor confidence is 20, but if we succeed every objective, it will be 125, so that's amazing. Anyway, that's it for my sponsor objectives. By the way, on the topic of my sponsor, on the projection screen, we can see that Lotto has a contract with us until the end of 2027, so financially, we are quite secure. Our sponsor also has the condition of wants to be the main sponsor, but that doesn't mean I can't have other sponsors. So throughout this season, on this prospecting screen, potential new sponsors will be found, and then I can negotiate with them at the end of the season to see if they can join us as a secondary sponsor for the next year. And of course, as you can see, up to 3 sponsors in total. Okay, before we continue, I want to talk about our finances. In PCM24, sponsor money came in on a monthly basis. But as you can see on the left side here, in PCM25, it's a yearly investment by the sponsor, not monthly. So all your money comes in at the start of the season. So I very much advise you to not spend all your money in January. Because as you can see on the facility screen on the right top, we've got lots of salary to pay every single month. And of course, if we can't pay our salaries, our team goes bankrupt. For example, playing as a team like Lotto who does not have the best finances, I won't send all my riders to a 10-day training camp in Teide, for example. That's too expensive. Instead, my team is going to Spain on a cheap one. This way, we're only spending 28k, which that's more affordable. I do have to confess that in PCM25, I don't know how effective training camps actually are. Do they even work right now? I don't know. Next up, rider training is important, so let's take a look at it. At the moment, Van Eetveld is training as a puncher, but I don't want that. I want him to train as a stage racer. If there's any chance I can improve his time trial into the 70s, that's such a bonus. I also want to change the leaf from a sprinter to a Northern Classics rider. Wait a second, Cedric Beulen, 73 Hillstat, 74 sprint, 73 cobbles. Why is this man training on stage races? It needs to be Northern Classics. Okay, I've corrected the axis of training for every single rider. Now it's time to take a look at their trainer. If we sort by training style, we can see that Milan Menton's preferred training style is traditional. But his current trainer is a modern style trainer, and we don't have a traditional style trainer. So on the staff page, I'm going to hire a new staff member, a traditional trainer. There we go, ex-pro cyclist Finn Delbare, that's a good hire, perfect. Back to the training page, Milan Menton is now training with Finn Delbare, traditional trainer. Okay, I've got the correct trainer now assigned to all the riders that have a training style, but what do we do with riders that don't have a selected training style yet? Honestly, I tend to sort by age because the older riders in the team tend to go for traditional, while the very young riders will most likely go for groundbreaking. Okay then, I've applied this page accordingly. One thing to note, on the staff page we can see the coaching effectiveness of each coach. This is based on the number of riders they are coaching. For example, Sven Baten, 8 riders, so excellent effectiveness. Once you start going above 8 riders per coach, the effectiveness goes down. That's why Finn Delbare with 11 riders is average effectiveness. So technically, I'd be better off hiring a 4th trainer. But it is gonna take some time before we know the preferred training style of every single rider, and I'd like to wait until I know that to hire a 4th trainer. To of course make sure that I sign the right style of trainer. Now turns out our team has 3 scouts, one of which is in Belgium, that's logical, but the other 2 are from Brazil and Chile. Lotto, Brazil and Chile, that's a bit of an odd combination. So I'm sorry boys, but you're getting fired. I honestly don't think we need more than 1 scout with Lotto because my focus is on Belgium. And actually, let's go ahead and put our man to work. Belgium, let's select that. On the right, Belgium as well selected. Choice of scout, Herman, and there we go. He's scouting. At the right top, we can see that because he's only scouting Belgium, he's super efficient. And because he's an international coach, the highest grade of coaches, he can actually scout multiple regions at once without losing efficiency. There we go. Portugal is also selected, and he's still double efficient. But if hypothetically we take it to the extreme and add France as well as the scouting region, then his double efficiency bonus is gone. So yeah, let's not do that. Basically, the way this works is this report page will be filled up throughout the season with riders as some kind of scouting pool, riders that I could potentially sign in the coming years. Anyway, Lotto also has a U23 development team with some massive talent. Jarno Widar, only 19 years old, 5.5 star potential with already 75 mountain. Just like with your main team, you also need to set the axis of training for these riders. So for example, Leon van Bijlen is not a stage racer, he's a sprinter. At the bottom of the screen, we can see that our U23 team is starting the season at the Tour de Rwanda. But imagine if we as the player could play that as our U23 team. That would be an awesome feature. Okay then, most of our season preparation is done for, so we can start moving forward a few days. 3 days later, and this email is actually quite important. It basically states that we can get a budget increase from our sponsor if our sponsor confidence is above 90 by October 31st. So yeah, we better achieve those sponsor objectives. And on January 6th, we get the most hated email on Pro Cycling Manager ever. I can't believe this, but 2 of my riders just went down in potential, from 5 potential to 3.5 in the case of Aldo Tailleux. He is literally useless now. Honestly, in my entire history of playing Pro Cycling Manager, I've never seen a rider increase their potential when receiving this email. They always lose talent. Actually, one last thing before our team arrives at their first races, I want to talk about the facility screen. On this page, you can invest in certain technologies for specific riders or for the entire team. For example, to start the year, I want to take high performance tires and spend that on Van Eetveld and De Lee, because those riders will need it. There we go, 42,000 euros, let's buy that. Now a massive red flag warning, do not spend your entire bank balance right now in January, because you need to be able to pay off your salaries on a monthly basis until the end of the year. Make sure your team does not go bankrupt, I'm speaking from experience. Anyway, our team has arrived on January 9th, the date of our first race. And that marks the end of our season preparation. I hope this video was a bit useful for the people that find the season preparation a bit overwhelming and wanted a bit of a guideline and a checklist. Be sure to drop a comment below if you want more videos like this. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.